Hi, I'm so happy to be here with Julia Estrada.
Hello. Hi, my name is Julia Estrada. I participated in ArtsBridge, the summer program in 2012. And now I'm working at Hamilton on Broadway, and we're going to walk to work in this freezing cold.
Amazing. So tell us about a regular day in the life of Julia Estrada.
Yeah, well, I live in the wonderful neighborhood of the Upper West Side. So when it's not crazy cold, it's pretty convenient to walk to work. And so we do 8 shows a week. And so we have our Mondays off, which are sacred off days. And so today we had a rehearsal this afternoon. And now we are walking to work to make our 6:30 call time for a 7 o'clock show.
Wow. So tell us what your life was like before you were here on Broadway in Hamilton.
Yeah, so I did the Hamilton tour about 4 months pre-pandemic. And then I was in Nashville during much of the pandemic with my family. And then we relaunched the Philip tour in August of 2021. So I did that up until mid-October. And right as I was leaving tour, because I had fulfilled my contract, I got a text to join the Broadway cast.
Amazing. So I was so excited when Hallie connected me with you. And how did you connect with Hallie?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know what? I don't know the exact details. I'm assuming it might have been through a voice teacher, because I had this great voice teacher named Trisha Leposki in DC who was sort of helping me through the college audition process and preparing me for that. But when it became clear that I needed a little bit more guidance, that's how we found Hallie. And so I think it was probably between her and my mom just Google searching like crazy how to find the best resources to prepare you for college auditions.
And do you feel that ArtsBridge played a role?
Oh yeah, a huge role. I mean, I think that, first of all, I ended up going to Texas State University for my BFA in musical theater, and up until that point, I had my program, but I also didn't know a lot about musical theater programs, BFA programs, and it was at ArtsBridge where I met Caitlin Hopkins, the head of the Texas State Musical Theater program, and I saw her work in a room, and the second I saw her work with students, I was like, I have to be a part of that.
And she was ArtsBridge faculty for ArtsBridge summer.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. And so what happened? How did the trajectory go after that?
Whew, let's see. Well, so it was at that camp somewhat that I had finally decided I was going to really commit myself during my senior year of high school to auditioning for musical theater programs. And so I had made the decision, and thankfully my family, super, super supportive. We made the decision to move to New York City to spend my senior year of high school at an arts-intensive high school called the Professional Performing Arts School on West 48th Street in Hell's Kitchen. And so that was my senior year, was basically getting all of that training in. I took some of my first dance classes with Adam Cates. I took acting class for the first time ever, and through that program and through Hallie worked on my material so that I could audition for BFA programs.
Wow. So ArtsBridge played a pretty big role.
Huge role. Yeah.
That's so amazing. Okay, so tell us about Hamilton. Tell us about your role in Hamilton. I know you're a swing and W5. For those of us that don't understand what that means, can you give us a little bit more insight?
Sure thing. So our ensemble tracks, the roles in the ensemble are M 1 through 6 and W 1 through 5. And those are full-time ensemble roles. So I play on Broadway W5 in the ensemble. And traditionally, and in this case, W5 also covers the Schuyler sisters. So I cover Eliza, Peggy Mariah, and Angelica.
Woo! You're a busy lady.
Yeah, definitely.
And how many shows do you do a week?
We do 8 shows a week. We do 2 shows on Wednesday, 2 shows on Saturday.
And so if anybody comes down with anything, you're ready to fill in.
Yep. Yeah.
So that must be, I'm sure that all of it is rigorous training, but that sounds a lot more intense.
Yeah, and especially Hamilton, I had worked on a few like regional productions leading up to Hamilton. I worked on one production in New York, but Hamilton was certainly my first like long-term contract. And in addition to that, it was my first time swinging. And it's one of those things that you either love it or you hate it. And you have to try it to understand whether your brain is sort of fit for that position. And I just found it super, super exciting to not only learn one track and do it really, really well, but learn a bunch of different tracks. So I learned 4 in total. And to have all those sort of swirling around in my head was like a fun little puzzle. So
Wow.
it's been fun to be able to stretch that muscle in addition to the performance muscle.
And so it sounds like being a swing could be a career in and of itself.
Oh yeah.
It seems like it takes a very certain type of person.
Yeah, it's definitely like, that's something that caught me by surprise in my experience working at Hamilton was the community that you become a part of when you become a swing, because it's that offstage community, and it's also that community of people who keep the curtain up and keep the show running.
Wow. So how long does one last in this position?
So we're on various contracts.
Okay.
So Hamilton, luckily, is a show that has done very well, and so it's a show that continues on year after year. And I've been doing it now since fall of 2019. And obviously we had the pandemic in the middle of that. But like, for instance, right now, the position that I'm in is temporary. And so I'm on this short little contract that will end in mid-January, early mid-January.
But you have all of these various roles that you can jump into.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the cool thing about it too, is that I've had some really great opportunities to travel then to even other companies other than the ones that I've been placed into. So like, for instance, maybe 5 months ago, I was working full-time on the Philip tour, and they called me and they said that they really needed sister coverage in Portland on a different tour. And so I flew out to Portland for the week, and that was also really cool because it's the same sister tracks, but there's tiny, tiny little differences. So it was also another great learning opportunity to learn those tracks. And then, in fact, about 2 weeks ago, I did the same where I flew out to Las Vegas to join a tour just for the day because they needed sister coverage as well. So I flew out with my Eliza costumes in a suitcase.
Amazing.
And went on for Eliza.
That is so amazing. So if you were going to give...
Sorry about that. The sounds of New York City.
Yes. If you were going to give one piece of advice to someone who's perhaps thinking about attending ArtsBridge Summer or doing some consulting, what would it be?
Well, I would say the first thing that comes to mind is just sort of like a general college audition tip, is that especially for a program where they're looking to essentially like invest in you as a performer, as a person for 4 years, like really don't be afraid to present yourself in the room. Don't try to walk in the room and present who you think they want or need in their program. Because if it's the right fit for you, then they'll see it immediately if you present your true authentic self. So I feel like that's something that Allie was always really great at homing in on, is saying like, just be you, because also in a college audition, a lot of times you have the opportunity to do songs, maybe a monologue, and then also sometimes they'll ask you questions. And I used to get super flustered during that like question part because I'm like, I want to know what's the right thing to say. And then I realized like they don't really care like what my answer is. It's just sort of getting to know you as a person, getting to know what kind of vibe you're giving off and whether that would fit well in this group of people that they're bringing together. So that's like my first sort of general thing, and it's something that I remember when I auditioned for colleges, I mean, it's so hard. You're like 16, 17, and you don't even really know who you are. So that's even something that I wish I could have told myself, is just to be comfortable being messy and being authentic, because that's so much more interesting than being perfect.
And where did you come from? You've been in New York since you were...
Yeah, I think I moved when I was right before I turned 17. I moved from Northern Virginia, tiny town called Falls Church City, Virginia. And went to a tiny little high school. I did some shows like in and around DC. I worked at Theater Lab, which was a fantastic like youth theater program that I loved, and a lot of the people who attended that program have gone off to do really incredible things.
Like you.
Yeah. I guess I'm one of them, yeah. And yeah, but I really, in part it was my own limitations that I was putting on myself, but I didn't really try to access a lot of like arts resources. My circle was very small, so Hallie really helped in expanding that circle and showing me just how unlimited those resources can be, that they're out there. Those, college consultants, dance teachers, voice teachers, and people that will kind of help you find your authentic sound, which was something that I didn't know how to even look for before being 15.
Wow. And so is that why you all moved to New York?
Yeah, that was a huge part of it. I mean, we had been living in that suburb for like 17, 18 years since before I was born. And it was a huge part of it. My family was really excited about a new adventure. And I really thank them for that they were so game to try out this crazy dream with me. But yeah, they
knew you
supportive.
would be a star. That's amazing. And so you all packed up and you moved to New York City.
Yeah.
Amazing. And this is the same apartment that you're in?
Yeah, well, same block of apartments. We've moved apartments within the same building. What's a cool story is that I just went back to my old high school, PPAS, just to sit in on a class with my old teacher, Jeff Satile, and we were talking and reminiscing about senior year and everything, and afterwards he sent me an email. Afterwards he sent me an email of a message that he received after my audition to get into the senior class, and it was that there were 3 people who showed promise in those auditions, and I was one of them. And the other 2 people are people that I know. One of them is Laura Skye Herman, who's also a Broadway actress. And then the other is my friend John Victor, who ended up going to school with me at PAS. And now he works on Hamilton. He's the Lawrence Phillip on a different Hamilton tour. So we both went to PBA. We did a show together. We did Cabaret my senior year, his sophomore year. And now we're both working on different companies of Hamilton.
That is amazing.
Isn't that cool? It's a small world. That's the thing you learn. It's a very, very small community of artists.
And so Hallie was integral on really pushing you in the direction that you wanted to go?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, she had all the information. And she had all the information. She had collected it in a way that was really easy to digest. Because that was our issue, is that like when you start getting serious about studying musical theater or the arts in college, all of a sudden you're just like inundated with all of these options, and you can't really, it's hard for like just the layman's person to decipher what's the right fit for you, what are all the requirements, because also some schools would want 2 monologues, some schools would want like 2 songs, some schools would want a Shakespeare, others didn't want a Shakespeare monologue. And so it was just like Hallie presented the opportunity of just this collective of information where I could say what I was interested in, and she immediately would think, ooh, this program would be great for her, she should focus on that. This program would be great, but she needs to be able to do this, so let's spend like a few months focusing on this specific skill. So she was fantastic and so her knowledge is just so valuable about all the different programs, and really, really good at placing people where she thinks would be a good fit.
Right, knowing where they need to go. And what about the other faculty? Do you recall anything?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't remember a lot. It was back in 2012.
Wow.
So you know what's funny is that like there are some people like college professors, but then also just like choreographers. Like I remember, I think Robin was at BOCO at the time. Maybe she was the head of the program. I don't know for sure, but it's been really interesting to like see those people again just throughout the industry, especially because they knew me when I was 16, and like super nervous and just like a completely different person because I just didn't know who I was. So it's been cool to run into those same people again. I think we met at ArtsBridge over a decade ago.
So it's true, ArtsBridge connects.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And who is the faculty that you said I need to study with her?
Oh, Caitlin Hopkins at Texas State. She came with Jim Price, and they just did a master class. And I didn't even go up in the master class because I was too nervous. But seeing her work with people and how she just knew exactly what she needed to say to get a specific performance out of somebody was really. I mean, I watched it and I was like, that's magic. And I wanted it to work on me, and so I was like, I think I need to learn from these teachings, and I need to be there in the room more times so that I can kind of soak that all up.
Wow, and those are the master classes that everybody's so tired after the full day.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then you add on that master class. Would that master class change your life?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and it's funny because like I said, I didn't even perform in it. I was just sitting back and watching. But it totally did change my life. And I think about like that trajectory and how it was all, much of it was just Hallie sort of trusting that when I said I really wanted to do this, I really wanted to commit to it, trusting that I was serious. And then the second that she recognized that I was serious, she was like, okay, we have work to do. Let's do it.
And here we are on Broadway.
Walking to work.
So what does a typical night look like? So how long is the performance?
So the performance is 3 hours long.
Woo!
Like a little short of 3 hours. But yeah, we go to work a little bit before half hour. I put my hair into wig prep, put my makeup on, and then we get started around 7 for the Thursday night performances. We have like an hour and a half act 1, a little over an hour act 2 with a 15-minute intermission. And it's tough. This is my first time doing like 8 shows a week full time as the W5 on Broadway, and it is no joke. My knees are feeling it, but it's also really, really fun.
And do you know everything for all of the different?
Yeah, like all the sisters. Yeah. It's all in there.
So it's not only your body, your brain.
Yeah, I always joke that even if I wanted to like leave the sisters behind, they'll always be in here. Even if they were to call me, I'm sure like 3 years down the road, I'd be like, yeah, they're still there. Okay, I can do this.
So did they recognize that in you to be a swing? Or did you actually apply to be a swing, or how does that work?
So I've never had the conversation with like the creative team or the casting director, so I don't know for sure. But the cool story behind me auditioning for the show is that the first time I auditioned for it I was 19. I was a sophomore in college, and I got a Facebook message of all things from a casting director saying that there was a new Lin-Manuel Miranda show that I think it was prior to the public performance that they were doing that she thought I would be great for, so she wanted me to submit for it. And so I was 19. I didn't book the job until I was like 24. So wow. I auditioned dozens of times over 4.5 years and didn't book it until 2019, in part because I think they recognized that I had a lot of growth that I needed to do before I was ready to kind of take on any position in the company. And then by the time that 2019 rolled around and I was doing the material, I think they had growth and the commitment to not only the material, but like the commitment to myself as an artist and as a professional, that I think there was probably a little bit of like, well, we've seen this woman now for 4.5 years. We know what she's capable of. We also like believe that she's capable of even more. So then the opportunity to be a swing, you're giving it to somebody who you've sort of seen grow periodically throughout several years. So I think that there was probably an element of like, as I started auditioning for Peggy Mariah stuff, because I was super young when I started, and then I kind of got into like Eliza stuff, so that by the time that I was auditioning for the swing, they had seen me do several roles already in the audition room.
And seen your consistency and your dedication.
Certainly my dedication.
I mean, this takes it to the next level of preparation and hard work.
Yeah, definitely.
So what would you say to people that were interested? You know, we have a workshop in New York City. If you aren't so busy, we would love for you to stop by. Coming up January 7th and 8th. And then, of course, we have ArtsBridge Summer. How important do you feel like these workshops, these audition workshops, the ArtsBridge Summer is for these young performers ready to really do this and take this on? What do they need?
I mean, I think it's super important because, you know, the more you do this, the more you recognize it's all like you're practicing in those moments. Even if you're auditioning for a show that you really care about, it's like you're working on a muscle. You're working on that muscle of auditioning, of doing good work, of not being sort of like thrown off by whatever happens in the audition room. Okay, I can go that way. And so I think like workshops like that are fantastic, and don't be afraid to really like play in those moments, you know, because it is a workshop. And the stakes feel really high, and sometimes it can be helpful to, you know, be like, I'm taking this seriously, obviously, but also recognizing that like you're figuring out how you act in those settings. So just getting into as many of those rooms, as many of those master classes as you can, so that you can continue to sort of tell your body, like, this is what it feels like to be in these rooms. These are the sort of reactions that my body has, whether it's like sweaty palms or like, you know, a shaking lip or whatever, and understand that like the more you do it, the more comfortable you get, so that when you are auditioning for a program and you're like, this is the next 4 years of your life, you have that practice of, you know, how to calm yourself down. So I think those are hugely important. I was lucky that when I was 16, 17, even before that, I started going to these master classes, and I was the really nervous kid in the room, but I practiced at it, and it's now something that I can actually say I genuinely like auditioning now, which is not something I ever thought I would say.
Or thought you would say, your 16-year-old self would say.
Oh yeah. But it's the sort of reminder that like we do this because we love it, you know? I hope nobody's forcing you to do this, something that you don't find enjoyable. And sometimes it can, because all the nerves get into it, sometimes it can feel like it's not enjoyable, and you have to remind yourself.
I just have to show you here, yeah.
Oh, it's so pretty.
It's like a dream.
But yeah, it's just that reminder that we do this because we love it. And sometimes you have to remind your brain that you're actually, what you're doing is art, what you're doing is fun, what you're doing is playful. And to not take the work seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously.
And how long do you feel like, if somebody was in their senior year, how old were you when you decided to make that switch, that you knew?
I mean, I was like 15, 16.
Okay.
So my journey is that I've always loved musicals, but when I started voice lessons, I started in like classical voice, which was rock musical theater, which was at that time sort of having this like new wave, and there was a lot of excitement around pop rock musical theater. And so that was around like 15, 16 when I made the choice, where I was, up until then I was thinking maybe I would go to school for classical voice, but realistically I was like, that would be 4 years where I wouldn't be loving every second of it, as opposed to doing musical theater. And I was like, oh, this is fun, and that's what I do in my free time even, you know.
Right, and you get to see colorful characters like this. New York City at its best.
Are there people?
Yeah. We're gonna give them a little taste of New York.
Yeah. Fordham University. Great acting program at Fordham University.
Yes, we have a lot of faculty from Fordham.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest benefits of ArtsBridge, is having that faculty that's actually going to be the people on the other side of the table that you're auditioning for.
Yeah.
Really coaching you.
Yeah, and also because it's like, I mean, even this is something I had to recognize in auditioning with casting directors, is that like, we're all just people in the room. We're people with a job to do. You want to take that seriously and respect that. But it's also like, you can have a conversation with people, and I think that was one thing that was really helpful going into, well, from my experience with ArtsBridge, is that when I went into those college auditions, I recognized the faces behind the table, and I didn't recognize them as like just their names and their positions, but I recognized them as, oh, I remember like when we shared a cool moment, you know, at ArtsBridge talking about a piece, or really had a breakthrough when we were working together. And so it took away that sort of fear of the position and putting them as like on the other side of the table, and more like, oh, well, they know me, and so if they think that I'm a good fit for their program, I trust them.
Right. That must be so comforting for a 16 and 17-year-old self.
And you need any bit of comfort at 16, 17, because so much is up in the air at 16, 17, 18, that like whatever sort of respite you can provide is so helpful, because it's a lot of pressure to think about, oh, this is the next 4 years of my life, and that should be taken seriously. But it's also like, you know, you want to make sure that you're really like bringing yourself to it and being authentic, because then also if you're lucky enough to be in a position where then you have a choice between schools, you can trust yourself and be like, what felt right in the audition room. That was something that I always need to work on. It's like literally like being present in the audition room, so that or in the college audition room, so that when I left I could be like, oh, I felt like I really connected with those professors, those people behind the table. And so it was as much like me choosing the program as it was the program choosing me.
Wow. And that comfort level is integral.
Yeah, definitely.
So what kind of advice would you give someone that's thinking about having this type of life?
Oh, let's see. There's a few different things, pieces of advice. The first is to take care of the people around you. I know, especially in college auditions, that can be difficult because it feels like you're competing. But realistically, like it goes back to the point of, if you're a good fit for the program, like they will recognize that. And so you sitting next to even a person that looks super similar to you, maybe is singing the same song as you all bring something different to it. So it's not a competition. Possibly you're sitting next to a person who you're going to spend the next 4 years of your life with. And so making it about competing I believe is just the wrong approach. So I always say, like, really take care of the people around you. Take the time. There are some people that I met at college auditions who I'm still somewhat connected to, and I like pay attention to their careers, because I took the time to get to know them and didn't just talk about, you know, what schools are you applying to, or, you know, what songs are you singing? But I was like, where are you from? What do you enjoy doing in your free time? Because I think that was the biggest realization for me, is that I do this. I'm in this career because I love the people that are also in this career with me. You know, it's also, there's elements of it that are just fun, like personally, artistically fulfilling. But it's also like, I go to work every day because I really like the people that I work with. And I want to take care of them. And because I know that like, when I need it, they're going to be there to take care of me.
It's beautiful.
We're almost there. We're getting closer.
And you walk every day? Is this your Zen time?
I don't walk every day. I sometimes take the subway, especially if I'm running late. But especially when the weather was nice. It's not very nice anymore. But when the weather was really nice, I would walk to work because it's like a nice zen thing. It's also like a nice warm up. Because people don't always prepare you for the fact that like you get to you can get to the theater as early as you want, but you get to the theater, I usually get there like 15 minutes before half hour, and so this is a good opportunity to kind of get my body moving, especially if I spent the whole day resting or recovering or running errands and not in the mindset of doing a show, and then come around like 6 o'clock, 5:30, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going even though my schedule is pretty much the opposite of everybody else's in Manhattan, like I have work to do, and so, you know, walking to work gives me kind of an hour to prepare myself for that show.
And can you find out now if you're going to be somebody else tonight? Like,
I can. Yeah, we got a text like a half an hour ago. That's our like lineup for the show, and our lovely stage manager Cameron sends us that text, usually with some time before half hour.
Okay.
And that's when we sort of know who else will be on stage with us. But he also usually he will send a text before that to individual people if people have called out and swings need to be on. And the beautiful thing about it is that like it's more common that there will be at least one swing or cover on stage. Like for instance, tonight we have 4 people, 4 swings or covers on stage. So it just makes it really fun because, I mean, the people who do the show, the position originally are fantastic as well. And it's a fun opportunity to kind of switch up the show based on who's on stage that night.
So who are you tonight?
Tonight I am W5. I'm in the ensemble. And tomorrow I will be Peggy Mariah. And that was a case where sometimes ahead of time we know that we're going to be on. So tomorrow I know I'm going to be on for Peggy Mariah.
So exciting. And how many times had you seen the show before you took part in it?
Before I took part of it, I think I was very lucky and obsessed with the show. That before I took part of it, I probably saw it 3 times. And I remember the first time I saw it, it was the original Broadway cast.
Wow.
Because I had known from like auditioning for it, I was like, oh, this is going to be a really cool show. And I tried to get tickets when it was at the Public and was unlucky securing tickets. By the time I knew that I wanted to go, it had already sold out, the Public run. So the second that the tickets went on sale for Broadway, I got tickets for that.
And what's the most memorable thing that stood out to you?
I remember when I first saw it, I remember just thinking this is the best ensemble work that I've seen at a show on Broadway, which is cool that now I get to be a part of that ensemble. And it's a good reminder, you know, because sometimes you walk into a show and you're like, ooh, I've had a long day, or this is my 2nd show today, or this is my 8th show this week. But it's a good reminder that, like, when I first saw the show, I mean, everything about it I loved, but especially seeing that ensemble, I was like the choreography, the intention behind the movement was just so special, and it was something that I felt was really activated in the Hamilton ensemble. So it's a really special thing to be able to be a part of that now.
Did you have a knowing that one day it would be you up there?
I had an inkling because I mean I when I auditioned for it, you know, I was like, first of all, I mean, just even artistically, a show like this doesn't come around often, and also as a woman of color and as a Latina actress, as a Mexican actress, I was like, this is a possibility to combine a bunch of different things that I love: musical theater, hip hop and pop rock musical theater, and also just fantastic storytelling. And so I had, you know, it's something that when you're going to school for musical theater, especially as a person of color, you know, and you do your research about what shows on Broadway you would be right for right now, or what shows in the past you would be right for. And as a woman of color, a lot of times those roles are quite limited. And so the fact that when I left school, Hamilton was an option, I think is a huge, you know, the timing, it was just serendipitous, you know. So yeah, I had an inkling when I was sitting in that audience for the original Broadway cast. I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this.
That's amazing. And what's your favorite part of it?
Let's see.
Look at how beautiful this is.
Hi. Yep. I mean, I love getting to play the sisters along with W5. I love the fact that there's always more to dive into. Like, I've been doing this show since 2019. I've known these roles, like the sort of like skeleton of these roles for many years now, and yet I still feel like every time I go on stage I discover something new. And that's the thing, is like, when it's good writing, good material, you're never done. There's always more work to be done, and there's always a deeper place to dig to. And that's what, like, we had a rehearsal today with Steph Clemens, who was a part of the original production, and an integral part of the creative team of making Hamilton. And the knowledge that she has of each movement is stuff that, like, I was hearing things for the first time ever today, and I've been doing this show for a long time. And so it's just the excitement of, like, going on stage tonight. I'm gonna do things differently than I did last night. So it's just the excitement of when the material is that good, you never stop learning.
So robust, but it's also so intense.
You've been doing a multitude of a lot of stuff.
You've been doing a multitude of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. A lot of things.
So, what does a typical day look like? Do you have to still study lines, lyrics? Like, how much do you sleep?
8 hours.
8 hours. You get your 8 hours in.
I always get my 8 hours. There's my friend Elizabeth Brady. She and I went to school together.
Oh.
Yeah, always get my 8 hours. I don't have to study anymore. Mostly because I've just been living with these sisters for a long time. It's also, like we talked about, like, being a swing is it's an exciting, like, brain puzzle for me. And so even though it's like, I think it's also paired with, I've let go of the idea of perfection. There's always going to be, like, little things that I do that I'm like, ooh, that was not quite right. But also, like, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. And so I've gotten to the point where I'm comfortable to say, like, oh, I know how to do my job, and the little discoveries that I make are fun, even if they're discoveries that I'm like, oh, I've been doing that wrong.
But that's the best way.
Yeah, totally.
So we're almost here. it's just so amazing that you started with the ArtsBridge in 2012, right?
Yeah.
And there's so many people that came in late and started listening in. So what do you want to tell the ArtsBridge kiddos?
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, first, you gotta have fun. Don't let go of the play. You know, I'm very lucky that this is my job and that I have a passion for this, and I've been, I really work hard for this, but also there's a lot of luck involved, and so it's just a reminder to always keep playing. And then also, let's see, I think just going back to what I had said before about figure out who your authentic self is. You know, be able to present that in a room. And if you don't know who you are, that's totally fine too. Like you're allowed to present a person in progress. Like we're all in progress, and so don't feel like what you have to bring through has to be perfection. Because I know I find this more interesting as a person who is just authentically themselves in all the mess and all the all the craziness of who they are, because that's real humanity.
Right, and you don't necessarily have to have it all figured out.
No. Who has it figured? I'm a decade older than most of these kiddos auditioning. I do not have it figured out. But that's the cool thing is when you realize like there is no end to that. Like you think, oh, I just have to do this, and then I'll be set. You know, even thinking about like getting into a school, a lot of people think of that as like the final, that's like the result. But getting into a school is the start of 4 years of training for a lot of people.
Of this intensive.
Yeah, exactly. So it shouldn't be thought about as, oh, it all ends when I get into a school, because that's really where it all begins.
And I love the fact that the faculty that you connected most with, and the whole reason why you went to the university you did, was a faculty that was one of the master classes.
Yeah. I mean, that was just the huge benefit of ArtsBridge and Hallie's relationships, was that I was introduced to programs that I had never heard about. You know, not because they were hard to find, but just I didn't even know where to look at the time. So I had this idea of where I should go. I had this idea of the kind of person that they would want, that different programs would want. And then I met Caitlin Hopkins from Texas State, and I was like, oh, she wants people, and authentic people at that. And just seeing her work with people, I felt like she was doing something even different than a lot of other programs that I saw. And I was like, I feel like I can fit in there. And thank goodness I did, because I mean that totally influences the work that I do today, is not aiming for perfection and not aiming to present anything else or anybody else other than myself on that stage. And in character, obviously.
Amazing.
We can cross. Okay?
We can cross here.
All right, so 3 hours performance. Are you ready?
Yeah.
We're so grateful and appreciative that you took this whole time, your whole walk here, to like tell us about your experience. And I feel like even though it might be some luck, it's truly your intention that you put forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's the cool thing, like just thinking about also that it was something that my mom and I got to do together, because also musical theater, especially the structure of like a musical theater program, was new to me, so I was learning a lot, and my mom was learning at the same time. And so at times, like obviously like any other mother dynamic duo, especially in like a high pressure situation like finding a program, there were times where I was like, I don't want to. There were times where we each got on each other's nerves, but ultimately, like, it was such a cool thing to be able to do together, to be able to travel to, like, Unified, to travel to the schools, get to know the programs. And I mean, that's the thing, it's like, at 16, 17, maybe you are still figuring out who you are, and your parents can help with that. They can sort of say, like, well, you know, they've lived with you for 16 years, so they could say, like, I think this place is a good fit, or you seem stressed out. I don't know if, like, 4 years at this program is the best idea. So then you look elsewhere. I wanted to walk down the street because this is my old high school.
Oh, wait, let's get you in front of there. Hey! Tell everybody the name of your high school again.
This is the Professional Performing Arts School, PPAS, and I was a senior here. And the cool thing about it is that they partner with arts programs, and so, like, for instance, the dancers in my school, a lot of them trained through either ALE or American Ballet Theater. The acting students, which we were able to participate in as well, trained through this acting program called Waterwell. And then the musical theater students, we took classes through a program just a few blocks away called Rosie's Theater Kids.
Okay.
Which is Rosie O'Donnell, entire program. And so that's where I even went back a few weeks ago. A few days ago, I mentioned to Rosie's to see everybody, because they also had, like, college audition prep and whatnot. So that was, like, the intensive training that I received my senior year.
Amazing. And how did you find out about this school?
I think it was through Hallie. It must have been through Hallie. I remember sitting we came to New York. It was probably, I'm trying to piece it together now. It was probably one of the workshops that she was holding in New York. I came from DC, and then afterwards we had, like, a sit-down meeting with her in the Le Pain Quotidien down the street by the park, and that's where she was like, Julia, I see your drive. I see
All right, have a good night.
you're committed to this, but you also have a lot of ground to make up. And she said, I really think you should consider looking at a performing arts school for high school. And I don't know if she knew at the time about PPAS. I mean, I'm sure she did, but I don't know if she told us PPAS at that time. I think we had 2 or 3 in mind. But then PPAS was the one that I, like, kind of really committed to and auditioned for, traveled up here for the audition, and luckily got in. So
Unbelievable.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, but it's important that she recognized your talent, and it's just so crucial to have those people, those integral people in your life to help guide you at a time where you really needed it.
Well, I mean, and I think about it this way. I'm like, at 16, at a time where I knew that I loved musical theater, but I didn't really know how to do much of it. Like, but she was able to see that, and it was so incredible to have somebody believe in me when I wasn't so sure about myself, you know? Mm-hmm. I wasn't so sure that I could do this, and yet she was there. And yet she was there to say, like, no, you can do this. And I don't know how she knew, you know, because I certainly wasn't telling her, like, I'm going to be on Broadway. You know, I was like, I like to do this. I want to do this. So she's incredible. I owe her a lot.
ArtsBridge connects. You see, it's getting brighter. We're getting close.
I always think it's funny that, like, I mean, I've lived in the city off and on because I've toured and lived elsewhere during much of the pandemic, but I've lived in the city now for over 10 years, and nobody likes Times Square. It's not a very, like, pleasant place to spend your time, and yet we all, like, dream of working here.
Right? I think that's like a New Yorker mentality overall.
Right.
And once you're here for more than 5 years, you're New York.
I like to think so. I like to think so.
Oh my gosh, we're getting close.
I can see it.
So, any questions before we go? Julia Estrada, Hamilton.
Happy to answer any questions that you guys have. This has been so much fun.
It's been so great. Thank you so much.
Of course.
I feel like we learned so much. There's so many people watching. Thank you so much. Ooh, I have a question. How did you manage the stress of auditioning for a BFA program, and how did you maintain the confidence?
Ooh. It was very stressful, I remember. And I've also wait, let's move a little bit further away from the trash. Closer to the trash can.
Yeah.
It was a very stressful time, and I also remember I was just a nervous kid. I was a very nervous auditioner. And so I really had to sort of figure out what I needed to calm my nerves. For instance, for me, I knew it seems like such a small thing, but I wore pants, and I don't think Hallie was saying you should wear a dress, but there's sort of the subconscious you want to present feminine, fit into a type, and I was I don't wear dress, I don't love dresses, and so I was again, that authenticity, why would I then put on a dress for an audition if I'm presenting myself, and in everyday life I don't do that? So it was really embracing the clothes that made me comfortable, the shoes that made me comfortable, the material. That's what Hallie also really helped at, was that she not only helped find material, but also said you should be working on this material daily, so that when you walk in the room, the material is the last thing that you're worried about. You're not worried about memorization, you're not worried about acting, because you're this is what I do, and this is what I do for fun. And so really that takes away any sort of guesswork if you're prepared, and if you're also just comfortable.
Yeah, and being your authentic self.
Yeah.
Really came through.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for all of your insight.
Of course.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Julia Estrada. Good luck tonight, and break a leg.
Thank you.